Few queens have become as infamous as Marie Antoinette of France. To some, she is the tragic victim of revolution, an innocent woman caught in the tide of change. But to others, she stands as the ultimate symbol of royal excess, arrogance, and incompetence. She has been blamed for the downfall of the French monarchy and the suffering of millions of her subjects. Whether those accusations are fair or not, one thing is certain. Marie Antoinette's time as Queen of France was marked by scandal, waste, and a complete failure to understand the world collapsing around her. Marie Antoinette was born in Vienna, Austria, in 1755, the 15th child of Empress Maria Theresa and Emperor Francis I. Her early years were comfortable but not exceptional. She was poorly educated and reportedly preferred music and dancing to her lessons. When she was just 14 years old, she was married off to the Dauphin of France, the future King Louis XVI, as part of a political alliance between Austria and France, and from the beginning her foreign birth worked against her. The French people viewed Austrians with suspicion, especially after decades of conflict between the two nations. The new Dauphin's accent, mannerisms, and close correspondence with her Austrian mother made her deeply unpopular. The French court, filled with intrigue and gossip, quickly branded her an outsider. But Marie Antoinette did little to win over her new subjects. Instead of learning French, all their customs, and taking her role seriously, she drifted towards pleasure, luxury, and self-indulgence. Unlike her formidable mother, who was one of Europe's most capable rulers, Marie Antoinette had no interest in government. Whilst most women of her era understood that royal women had to project dignity and wisdom, Marie seemed determined to do the opposite. She rarely involved herself in state affairs and spent much of her time avoiding her royal duties. Her husband, Louis XVI, was shy and indecisive, but instead of helping him strengthen his image, Marie encouraged him to retreat further from responsibility. When advisers warned her that France was in serious financial trouble, she simply ignored them. Her attitude can be best summed up by her alleged quote, "Let them eat cake." Whether she said it or not, the phrase captures the public's perception of her, an uncaring, spoilt woman living in luxury while people starved. Marie Antoinette's spending habits were legendary, and they became one of the main reasons the French people came to despise her. She loved fashion, jewels, and elaborate parties. She ordered dresses by the hundreds and wigs that reached over 2 feet in height. She spent enormous sums of diamonds, perfumes, and the construction of private retreats, such as the Petit Trianon at Versailles, a small palace gifted to her by the king, which she treated as her personal world away from the rigid etiquette of court life. But her most shocking extravagance was the Hameau de la Reine, her little village. Here, she and her ladies-in-waiting dressed up as milkmaids and shepherdesses, pretending to live the simple rural life while real peasants outside the palace walls struggled to survive. She drank milk from porcelain cows, played at farming, and hosted picnics in the artificial meadows, all at enormous expense to the treasury. The contrast between her fantasy world and the grim reality of French financial status was unbearable to her subjects. In their eyes, she became the living embodiment of royal greed and arrogance, all whilst France was in financial ruin. Marie Antoinette's reputation was further destroyed by relentless gossips and scandal. Parisian pamphlets called her Madame Deficit, blaming her for every economic problem. She was accused of manipulating her husband, seducing foreign princes, and even committing incest with her son, a grotesque accusation made during her trial. One of the most damaging incidents was the diamond necklace affair in 1785. A criminal scheme involving a fake purchase of a necklace worth 1.6 million livres, a staggering sum at the time, linked her name to fraud and deceit, even though she was not directly involved. The public, already primed to despise her, refused to believe that she was innocent. In the popular imagination, Marie Antoinette became a villainess, a woman who drained France's wealth whilst laughing at its misery. Even the revolutionary press portrayed her as a serpent at the heart of the monarchy, whispering poison into her husband's ear. By the late 1780s, France was collapsing under the weight of debt, famine, and anger. Ordinary people were starving, and the treasury was nearly empty after years of costly wars and extravagant spending. Yet Marie Antoinette refused to believe that anything was truly wrong. She urged her husband to resist reforms that could have saved the monarchy. When Louis XVI's advisers proposed cutting court expenses and introducing fairer taxes, she dismissed them as a tax on royal privilege. She famously opposed Jacques Necker, the financial minister who tried to repair France's economy. Her short-sightedness turned a difficult situation into a disaster. Her letters during this time show her deep misunderstanding of events. She described the revolution as nothing more than a passing storm. Even when mobs surrounded Versailles in October of 1789, demanding bread and shouting for her death, she failed to even grasp the danger. By this point, Marie Antoinette was not merely unpopular, she was hated. Her image as the Austrian queen and Madame Deficit made her the perfect target for the revolutionary anger. The people saw her as the cause of their hunger and despair. Her jewels and gowns became symbols of their suffering. Even those who might have sympathised with her saw her as hopelessly out of touch. During the Women's March on Versailles in 1789, thousands of starving women stormed the palace demanding bread. When they broke into the apartments, she barely escaped alive, and the mob reportedly shouted, "We want to see the Queen's head on a pike." From that moment, her fate was sealed. The monarchy's last thread of connection to the people had been severed. In 1791, Marie Antoinette committed one of the greatest blunders in royal history. Desperate to escape revolutionary Paris, she convinced Louis XVI to flee the country. The plan was to reach the fortress town of Montmédy, where loyalist troops could protect them, but the royal family's escape was poorly organised. They travelled in an enormous carriage which drew attention everywhere they went. At Varennes, they were recognised, arrested, and taken back to Paris in disgrace. The failed escape destroyed any remaining trust between the monarchy and the people, and from then on, the revolutionaries no longer saw the king and queen as misguided rulers, they saw them as traitors trying to abandon France. The flight to Varennes was entirely Marie Antoinette's idea, and it proved her complete political blindness. Instead of saving her family, it condemned them. Even as the monarchy crumbled, Marie Antoinette refused to adapt. She continued to write letters to foreign powers, especially her brother, Emperor Leopold II of Austria, begging them to invade France and restore her throne. The revolutionaries, these secret correspondences confirmed the worst fears, that the Queen was a traitor working against her own people. When war broke out between France and Austria in 1792, Marie was seen as a collaborator. Her arrogance and her stubbornness made her incapable of understanding the new world emerging around her. While other royals in Europe fled or compromised, she clung to the belief that her divine right would somehow protect her. It did not. In 1792, the monarchy was abolished and the royal family was imprisoned in the Temple Tower. Louis XVI was executed in January of 1793, and 9 months later it was Marie Antoinette's turn. Her trial before the Revolutionary Tribunal was a spectacle. The charges were absurd and politically motivated: treason, sexual corruption, and conspiring with enemies of France. But the public demanded blood, and the verdict was inevitable. On October 16, 1793, at the age of 37, Marie Antoinette was taken to the guillotine. She was pale, thin, and worn down by months of captivity. As she climbed the scaffold, she accidentally stepped on her executioner's foot and said her final words: "Pardon me, sir, I did not do it on purpose." Moments later, the blade fell, ending the life of the most hated woman in France. In fairness, Marie Antoinette was not uniquely evil, just uniquely unprepared for the role she played. She was born into privilege, married into one of the most powerful monarchies in the world, but never learnt empathy or responsibility. Her failures were catastrophic. She lived in luxury whilst her people starved, dismissed reformers who could have saved the throne, and encouraged her husband's weakness. Her reckless spending, political interference, and arrogant behaviour turned the people against the monarchy forever. Even after her death, her image continued to haunt France. Revolutionary leaders invoked her as a warning against royal excess. Writers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and journalists like Marat used her as a symbol of everything wrong with the old regime. Marie Antoinette did not single-handedly cause the French Revolution, but she embodied the system that did. In the centuries after her death, historians have tried to rehabilitate Marie Antoinette's reputation. Some portray her as a victim of circumstance, a young woman crushed by forces beyond her control. Others see her as misunderstood, pointing out her acts of charity and devotion to her children. Yet these small virtues could not erase the greater truth. Marie Antoinette was a disastrously poor queen. She lacked intelligence, humility, and a sense of duty. She ignored the suffering of her people and refused to face reality until it was too late. Her reign marked the death of the French monarchy and the beginning of a new, bloodier era in European history. The guillotine that claimed her life would soon claim thousands more, all in the name of liberty, equality, and vengeance. Marie Antoinette's story is a warning about what happens when rulers live too far above the people they govern. Her failure was not just one of politics, it was one of humanity. While her beauty, her charm, and her tragic end have inspired countless books and films, the truth remains that she was a terrible queen, vain, shallow, and dangerously disconnected from the world around her. If history remembers her as its worst queen, it's not because of her cruelty or because of her blindness. It is her inability to see the glittering world of Versailles was built on the misery of her subjects. When that world finally collapsed, she fell with it and took an entire monarchy down in flames. Thank you for watching, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.